Today we have Tim Marsh, Vaishali Dialani, Gianluca Turturro. Hopefully I'm saying that last name correctly. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and pass it over to Timothy.
Thank you very much. 1 second. I'm just going to share.
Or I should say Tim.
No, that's all right. That's fine. I'm not in trouble. It's fine. Bear with me. So I always lose Teams. Teams back. Right. Hopefully you should see my screen.
You are good.
Cool. Okay. Right. So hello, everyone. My name's Tim Marsh, and I'm here to talk to you about solving real business problems with Content Hub. On the screen in a second, when it catches up, you should see an agenda for today. Very briefly, I'm going to go over who I am. I'm going to talk about what Content Hub is. Then we're going to talk about its flexibility, and then I'm going to give you some business problems because ultimately, you know, it's how it's seen as a product will be pretty bit different to how I use it. I'll give you a quick recap, and then we can do some questions, obviously, with time permitting. So let's start. Who am I? My name's Tim Marsh. I'm a technical consultant at EPAM. I am a two-time MVP. I've recently just obviously got my second. I've worked with Sitecore for well over a decade, probably more like 12 to 13 years, definitely back in the XP days, 6 point something. And at EPAM, I co-head our CMS and DXP practice for EMEA. Contact details are there, but I'll obviously reach out. So right, let's talk about what Content Hub is. So obviously Content Hub is a DAM, and that's the talk, guys. Thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate your time. But no, obviously I'm joking. Content Hub, as you'll see on the next slide, was probably seen by a lot of people as just a DAM up until mid-2022. And then there's been a real shift. So everything you see in the green section here, this is after the new products got acquired, the new direction of Sitecore, you know, around symposium time, Content Hub sort of took a new lease of life. And ultimately, yeah, it's definitely much more the DAM, and definitely the way that we use it is a lot more the DAM system. But what I'll do is I'm just going to talk to you about, you know, why being a DAM is probably not the best thing. You know, DAMs ultimately have similar features, so it's quite hard for customers to differentiate. Also, as well, being a DAM is they're very costly, or they can be seen as very high cost. So I think that's another, let's just say, a problem that a customer has to get their head around. You know, how much they want to spend. And to be honest, a DAM, there's so many to choose from. So literally, like that bowl of M&Ms, you know, your Skittles, you can. There's so many, you know, it's hard to obviously differentiate. But this is where Content Hub comes into its own, because Content Hub is actually so much more than a DAM, and it is a multi-dimensional solution. So it has a core product, which I'll talk about in a second. But then, as you'll see with the business problems in a minute and the ways that we can solve them, it's so much more than the core as well. We can do a lot more with it. So for anyone that's unaware, Content Hub comes in two flavors. So we're going to have our flavors and toppings here. It comes in the DAM, which is DAM, DRM, PCM capability, and I'll cover them in a minute. And then you have operations, which is exactly the same core, but it has the added functionality for your content and for your marketing resource management. Then it has some toppings. So we have Experience Edge, and we obviously have Publisher as well. So Publishers for print and web to print stuff. And I've done a lot of blogging on that if you want to have a look about what it is. The good thing about Content Hub, though, is it's totally open to integration. So I think this is what sets Content Hub apart from a lot of other platforms in this category. You can pretty much build whatever you want, and I'll cover that in a few slides. But I mean, you know, it's got out-of-the-box integrations, obviously, to a lot of the Sitecore suite. But in theory, you know, you've just got to understand, you know, what problem are you trying to solve. So when you've defined that problem, and I don't know, you've got a customer that's got a PIM, another CMS, a search appliance, it's quite easy when you understand what your problem is. You can actually get to the root of it, and you can connect together. But Content Hub is definitely open for integration. Right. What I'm going to do now is to talk to you a bit more about that flexibility and just cover a bit more there. So as I've said, there's 5 main areas to Content Hub, which are the 5 ones there. And then when you combine that with the out-of-the-box stuff like the workflows, the full configuration, user roles, the trigger and action framework, this all out of the box, regardless of the version you have, you can do so much with it. You know, that's just a product. You know, for instance, an asset gets uploaded, you need to be able to create different sizes, or I don't know, remove certain layers, condense the images, push them to these networks like CDN networks. It all can be done just out of the box with the tool. So you know, that core functionality is really powerful. But this is where Content Hub starts getting really fun, is you can actually free model. So free modeling is pretty much you can build your own data types and schemas. And this is, now don't get me wrong, I've got a warning on here, you know, it can on occasion backfire. and you have to have a long call with Sitecore support or many calls to try and find out where you've gone wrong. However, but the freedom it does give you, if you do it correctly, you can actually make this tool it's so powerful. You can build your own data structures, you can configure the UI to use them. It's really great in that respect to be able to give the customer a bit more of if they've got certain data they need to capture on an item, you can do it all really easily. It's all point and click, it's all configuration based. Then to make even better, you can obviously use serverless. So Content Hub has a very standard pattern, let's just say, between service bus or API calls. You can make them from the tool to logic apps, serverless functions, even Sitecore Connect. There's actual connectors that Sitecore built on Connect that can get Content Hub items and they can push them, or vice versa, they can push to Content Hub. It's a really powerful API. This is where the taking that core product, this is where you do the free modeling and the serverless. This is where you start to really define how this solution can fit for a customer. So I think this is what's really cool. As a standard say pattern, but it gives you, it's really open, and it gives you a lot of ways to connect this platform to others. And then the last one, which wasn't my favorite up until the start of the year, but definitely is now, is actually React. Everything in Content Hub, or a lot of it now, is all built React, all the UI components, and you can actually build your own. So quite extensively this year, I've built probably about 15 different components for Content Hub that are all React based. I'm not a front end developer, but I've taken to it it's been quite fun to actually learn something new. But this is where stuff you couldn't do, you can actually go and build it in React, and you can pull data from the API or from external sources, and this makes things real. This actually gives the customer exactly what they need. So this is what's really cool. So yeah, React's definitely my favorite area now. Cool. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to take you now through for some business problems that we've identified that we see from customers, and how Content Hub can obviously help. Okay. So the first one, this is a real simple problem. It's one of the standard use cases for Content Hub. And this one here is that you have a customer that has multiple asset stores and multiple operations they have to take. So it could be that they have to manipulate the image and create variations. They have to perform updates. They have to store them on a CMS, whatever the job will be. But you've got two sides. You've got someone in the middle, let's just say, or people in the middle that needs to do it. There's duplication, there's manual processes. It takes time. They've got to take it from source system to this system. They've got to do this, they've got to do that. It really gets, it can be tedious for people. Where Content Hub can come in, and this is where it's a really cool tool, is you can actually take that and, they're storing all the assets in Content Hub. So that headache of multiple platforms disappears. But then all the operations there, so all the stand operations. So you can update, create new versions, push them to CDN networks, publish to the CMS. It's all there. You get DAM pickers as well for Sitecore XP and XM Cloud. So if your customer's got both tools, they can actually use assets from the tool. It's really cool. And I think that, it's a simple use case, but it's one that works really well. This is about re-centralizing. So it's about a customer that has distinct processes that are everywhere, and then taking them and then putting them into one. So that's really good. So that's the first simple use case. And then they're going to start getting a bit more complex. Okay. This is quite an interesting one as well. I mean, we see this quite a lot, where we have customers that have product data. So they have PIMs. Content Hub isn't a PIM. It has a PCM module, but it's not a PIM. But the best part is that Content Hub, because it's open to extension, means you can link it to the PIM. And this is something there. So this use case here is that for a customer that has a separated PIM, and then they've got to update data. So my context here is that imagine they're a chemical company, because there's a reason why in a minute you'll see. They have a lot of product data. This data is really important. They have thousands of products, all with, that could have potentially harmful or irritant ingredients. They need to make sure that all of their literature is updated, because obviously this correct information, could be given, could affect the treatment that has to be given to someone if they spill that chemical on themselves. So imagine that, what's happened here is that, products had an update. The user has to go to the PIM, they have to get the data, they have to then push the data to all the different areas. It's a really big job, but no one really wants to be doing that or get it wrong. So this is why this is a really important use case. But the beauty is here of Content Hub is that we can link it to the PIM. So we can do a bi-directional integration. Every time a product is updated, we can update Content Hub. We can update, they can enrich the data, they can localize it, whatever they need to do, they can do everything they want to do. And then we then know that we can set the integrations up. So for instance, if it's physical data, packaging, online channels like websites or digital signage or physical signage, Content Hub can actually push everything across. So all the digital and the physical, it can push to all the platforms that manage that. The best part is that, you know, no one wants to not get this right. They have to put the right data, but it takes time. With a model like this is actually solving it could be a health problem here. You know, if someone, needs to get their data out because there's a chemical change, things like that. That's why, chemical companies are a good example here. But yeah, it's all about how do you make the person's job. It's not easier, but how do you make sure they get it done correctly, and making sure that when a data's been updated, it can push out to all of your downstream systems. Okay. Cool. Third problem I'm going to give you here is about global brands with lots of websites. So, in this case, we're going to have an automotive manufacturer that has loads of global websites, which is their corporate, the campaign sites. It could be country websites, online stores, and have social media. Chances are they're going to have content everywhere. They're going to have duplicated content. They're going to have, additional licenses, additional costs. There's loads of duplication. And the problem you have here is that it's probably the old story of that someone in the marketing team gets some budget and they go, I'll just build a campaign site because it'd be quicker than getting Sitecore XP updated or talking to our IT team or our other team. This is where this sort of problem comes, and everyone sees it. It's the whole multi-site, multi-facet site problem, where every country or every brand might have their own site, and it just gets a bit chaotic. But what you can actually do is with something like CMP, you can build your content once, you can localize it, create versions, you can push it to your social channels, push it to the front end, which powers all of your websites. This is a really powerful, we're seeing this a lot more, especially at EPAM now, where, content as a service. People aren't so bothered about what CMS they're using, or they're not bothered about this technology or that. They just want to know that they can save money by consolidating down how they author content, use AI to translate or to create versions, and they just want to know that when they push that button through workflows, it pushes it up to the correct thing, and everyone's got the correct version of the content. And I think we're seeing that a lot where customers are trying to save money. So this is definitely a good mechanism where how something like Content Hub, which is seen as a dam, essentially because of CMP, could actually become a very lightweight content as a service platform. Now, obviously, you could have it that this customer does have, say, like XM Cloud or another headless CMS as well for different brands. But the best part here is you're centralizing the content, and then you can push. So the beauty of Content Hub is that you can push your content, wherever it's got to go. So hopefully, that makes sense on M3, and I say this is just one where, you can, it's all headless, it's all composable. That's the best part as well. It's a good story. And then the last one, this is a new one that's coming to us, and it's actually about managing promotions. So the context here is that we're going to say the customer's a national supermarket chain, and they plan 6 to 12 months in advance for specific products or product ranges. They're planning, if anyone, I'm not sure about in the States, but obviously in Europe, you have your supermarkets like your Aldi's, your Lidl's, things like that. This is the special buy leaflets, or if they've got promotions running, or any supermarket does it. We've seen a problem, and we're encountering a problem with customers at the minute where they're having to update their PIM data, and then they're having to run all this manually through Excel sheets, Google Sheets, whatever. Very manual, very basic. They have to spend a lot of time, a lot of effort trying to get data, trying to get pricing data. They've got to go to all the management systems. It becomes chaotic. And what happens is that it just takes a long time. But yeah, the problem we've had is that how do we solve it? So, and this is where React is definitely something that's helped us here. Is we actually can build on top of Content Hub the views the customer needs. Some of the out of the box ones aren't. Content Hub wasn't designed for it, but the data storage is what the customer needs. They need the data storage. They need the workflows, the user roles, the triggering. We can configure the views, and this is where it gets really fun. Is that you can then give customers that real realism of a solution. They're very much focused on what they've got today with, say, their Excel sheet, and they obviously want it somewhere else. You don't want to copy it like for like, but how do you do that with a tool? And this is where the power of React, the power of Content Hub, its configuration, linking to PIMs and product data systems, talking to pricing systems. the system can do it and we can display it, and it empowers the user. And I think that's the other thing as well, is that it's all about the user. If the user finds a job really hard, they're not going to do it. So we're trying to find a way to actually harmonize the best of the platform, what the user wants, and trying to give the user what they need as well. So what they want and what they need, as a fine balance. But yeah, they're 4 solutions. I've gone from really quick. I'm happy to obviously have a Q&A in a second. I'll come to that in a minute. But the idea here is I'll give you a quick recap. But Content Hub is so much more. It's not just a DAM. It's so much more than that. And it is a platform that's open to integration. So I think it's really important. If you have customers that are looking at Content Hub, take a step back, have a think, because the conventional methods of, say, what Content Hub is may not fit, but trying to solve their problem. At the end of the day, no one buys a DAM. They're trying to solve a problem. If the DAM's the power behind it, that's great, but you have to solve the problem. And I think for me, the best part about Content Hub is it's just open to integration. You can do so much with it. Okay. I will literally throw it open to questions there, and I'll put a slide back up which has my contact information. But yeah, hopefully, I've done it pretty quick. But yeah, the idea is now, please talk. Let me know your questions. I see there's some in the Q&A. I've named it yet. But yeah, okay, no, it's not. But yeah, any questions, I'll throw it open.
You're good. I don't see any. If anyone does have any questions, comments, feedback, thoughts, feel free to put it in the Q&A section. It doesn't necessarily have to be a question, because I know the attendees do not have speaking rights, just the presenters do. So feel free to add any feedback in that Q&A, or even in the regular chat. We'll see both. Cool. And with that, we are going to move on.
Thank you.
And then Vaishali, okay, you're good. All right, I see you on camera. And I see your screen. You're all set.
I am. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be here today, and I'm going to talk about analytics deep dive, but mostly focus on the art and science of customer understanding, because that's where the data kind of fits in, really. And when I was looking at these pictures and finding these nice images to put on this cover screen, I was like, I want to put happy faces. I want to put ways that we can look into things, because how we decide to look into numbers and analytics is going to really define the experiences that we want to be able to design. So without further ado, I would love to kickstart by walking through the agenda, talk to you about who I am and why I'm here. Why am I here? Explore Sitecore's Analytics Toolkit. How can we leverage insights? And then did you know exercise and key takeaways in Q&A. So a bit about me. I am a driven, young, independent girl based out of Dubai. I recently met Tamash and a few of them at Sitecore DX Dubai. I have been in the industry for over 8 years, and my first time winning strategy MVP, so I'm super excited. But besides that, I've also been honored to be recognized as the top 10 CXM stars across the world, and also co-author of CX5 book, which is on Amazon right now, so you can definitely check it out. And why am I here? So I feel very, very personally that I'm here to advocate strategy. I'm here to talk about the transformation that we all really can create with the power of strategy and analytics, to connect data, to connect the dots, and to really bridge that product that we have, the fantastic opportunities that we have from the product perspective, but is not really leveraged by customers and end users. So that's what I do at Konabos. My role is as senior customer experience strategist at Konabos Consulting, which is a partner of Sitecore, and I mainly focus on helping customers offer a holistic experience from data, design, customer journeys to research. And most of the time when we do that, their biggest question always is, how can I leverage data and how can I use data? So I really help them with a lot of this stuff. Right, let's dive in. So explore Sitecore's analytics tools. I just want to walk through just of the top 3 that are very, very popular. First and the foremost is the experience analytics that offers a comprehensive insight into customer interactions and across digital platforms. It also has the ability to literally track your marketing activities, your trends, has these incredible charts, which are super easy to use, but most times people don't really know how to use them. These graphs really give you insights into the visitors and other KPIs that you might put in as goals. The next one is Path Analyzer, which I think is I'm a little biased towards it because I'm from CX and I love customer journeys, and the Path Analyzer is amazing because it helps really create that map for me visually that really helps and connects that sequential dots to say this was the touch point and then this is where the customer navigated and then this has happened and that happened. And I love using this a lot more. It can help you a lot with campaigns, to create those campaigns, identify those touch points where they're dropping off, triggering those goals and outcomes. Last but not the least, I know there's a lot few, so I had to kind of pick and choose. Is this experience optimization, and the name really says it all. It's the ability to be able to optimize your content, whether it is in variations, in components, in content, which pages work well. You can really do A/B testing and different other tests, alternative variant testing, to be able to say, oh, this is working well. This is what our customers are resonating with, and this is not really doing well. So this is how we need to focus. But I want to take a second and really ask, I would be really grateful if everyone could just put on their comments and tell me what's common amongst all of them. Besides the fact that they're amazing products and they're Sitecore products, but what is really common between all of them? Can people put in the comment? I would be really interested to know. Any thoughts? No thoughts, guys, really? Okay, data, engagement value. Bring it on, bring it on. You guys have a minute. Come on, strategy, folks. I would love to see this. Seeing value in what we build. That's interesting. Okay, anyone else? Give it a try. I'm loving these answers, by the way. I really appreciate it. Okay, then, no problem. Cool. So I think, based on my experience, I feel that the most common thread, all of them are undoubtedly powerful, but the most common thread amongst all of that is the three things that they focus on, which is customer journeys, customer interactions, and customer behavior. So like you said, data, right? But what's more interesting than this data is the fact that they offer a unified approach. They give you the ability to offer that 360 overview that helps you really leverage data to its maximum capacity to be able to offer that tailored and effective customer experiences. So whether you're identifying customer journeys that help you identify which touch point or interaction did they drop off at and why, leads to this whole circle. And this holistic view is across all these platforms. If you start really playing around with it, it has everything you need. But most of the times I feel we go into this rabbit hole of trying to do everything all at once and then not really leverage the capabilities that we have in hand. What happens when you're doing a unified approach? When you really leverage the unified approach, you know more about the customer than the customer himself. That's huge. Let that sink in. The power to know more than your customer is massive. And without data, you really can't do that in today's day and age. This unified approach helps you to understand what happened already. How did the customer likely feel about that interaction? Is that why they did that particular thing at that particular touch point that led them to take a certain path than the one that other people didn't take? And when you start doing that, not only that, you then start being able to share that data across the organization because you're not working in silos when it comes to data. You're now telling your company, look, if a customer service team calls and they're like, I don't understand why this customer is behaving that way, you can actually tell them, you know what, wait, I have the data, I'll share it with you. What happens when you're offering this data to everybody in the organization and everyone has an overview to it? You're allowing to remove friction at every touch point. Now, if they call the customer service team, the customer service team already knows. It's like, yeah, Tamasha, I completely understand you. I know this is a problem you faced at this touch point. I'm here. I got you. Other than, imagine if there was another experience that they're like, sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, can you please tell me what you walked through? It's going to get more frustrating. A customer's already angry on a call. The fact that you have this data and you can share it and leverage it across diverse teams really helps remove friction at every touch point. Secondly, it really helps you put yourself in their shoes. You then understand if Tamash was going through a certain experience, how would you feel if you went through something like that? End of the day, you're also a customer, right? To somebody, you're designing amazing experiences, but at the end of the day, you're a customer too. And lastly, having the power to present the right content at the right time. That's amazing. Imagine if I exactly knew what to show Tamash at that exact moment because I knew what his purchasing temperament would be. How fantastic would it be? What would that experience be like for customers? That's how I think leveraging insights should be. To be able to know and find these ways of optimizing those different touch points, that's the power that data holds for all of us. And we all have it. It's in our fingertips. It's just that we don't use it enough, unfortunately. Not for ourselves, enough for our clients. Did you know that up to 3 times significant improvements in strategic decision making can be done when you start using data? 3 times. That's massive. This PwC report really started making me think, am I collecting all data points for our customers? Am I doing all things right? Most of the time when we are the ones helping our clients, we often feel like, are we doing enough? Is there anything more that we can do? I have this conscious semi-self guilt. I don't know what I can call it, but I do. I feel that all the time. So I think this was really, really good. And the other one was very interesting because it said that 44% of the organization still lack an enterprise-wide data strategy. That's huge. 44%. In the day and age that we use data for every single thing, there's still 44% that don't have an enterprise-wide data strategy. Having data is one thing, having a strategy on how to use that data is another. So you can have all the amazing Sitecore products, you can use everything, you can suggest your clients to do anything and everything, but if you don't have that right strategy on how to optimize their digital touch points, on how to tell them that this is how you deep dive into your analytics, these are the KPIs you use, you're not helping them. In my focus, I think that's where the strategy piece comes in. That's why we all here on the call are here to say, let's plan this roadmap for them. Let's tell them which KPIs need to be captured. What's the success rate like? What's an error rate like? At which page are most visitors coming to? How can we test content on that page or components on that page? Being able to do different tests, there's so much that you can do, but you need to start. So my key takeaway for everybody here is, whether it is experience analytics or path analyzer, where you have these amazing nodes and paths, and you can see these returning map tools, all of the fun stuff, along with, being able to optimize these experiences. There's only one thing I suggest everybody take back from this call today, is get your hands dirty, is literally dive into these numbers, is just start. Just start. Pick on anything that works for you, your client, or your team. We have incredible documentation, right? We have all the resources that we need at our fingertips. I found them so useful when I didn't know. I spent time learning it, so I was able to help somebody else. But I picked one thing at a time and time box and learn that one thing so you can help somebody else. But just start. And with that, I would love to end the presentation, and the floor is open for questions. I would love to connect with everyone and hopefully see everyone in Dublin very, very soon. That's it for me. Any questions? Cool. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much. And if any questions, comments, or things come up, she's obviously put her LinkedIn there. Feel free to reach out. It's great to kind of foster these conversations and collaborations among everyone. All right, and certainly last but not least, Gianluca, I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Let me share my screen, and I'll ask you for your kind confirmation that everything works.
It works. You're good.
Fantastic. So hello, everybody, and thank you for joining this webinar. With me today, my lovely colleague, Anna, who is Key Account Manager with us at ACTUM Digital. Of course, Anna, you are expert admin in Content Hub, and of course, you will be traveling to the SUBCon in Dublin. So we can meet there. And myself, Gianluca, I'm partner here at ACTUM Digital. Used to be also Sitecore MVP for 6 years. So today, I would like to talk to you about the AI and its role in translation and localization of content. So why do we need to localize and translate any content? In fact, we as humanity are very diverse, right? So there are many people, many countries, and of course, many languages. We have evolved very differently among ourselves. And it is actually very tricky to communicate between each other or among each other. And you can imagine that as people, and especially as companies, if we want to communicate our product, service, or anything to anybody, we can do so very easily in our, I would say, native language, but it is maybe sometimes a bit tricky to do so in other languages. And that's because a language is not only a way or a set of words that one can use to express things, but it's also a way of thinking and a way of understanding things. And to confirm this, I would like to use actually a quote of one of my favorite books, which is called When Cultures Collide. It's written by Richard Lewis. And in this book, he dissects how cultures and how cultural backgrounds influence very heavily language and the way how people understand information. And you can clearly see that it is very much impactful on the language, the culture, where for every culture you can have different notions of time, space, life after death, nature and reality. And for some cultures, you have a thing like a very easy representation of a color, such as green. Advanced people can say dark green and light green, but the Zulus, for instance, they have 39 colors of green. That's because they need to orient themselves in foliage and in nature based on the greens that they find, right? The same is with the Inuit. They have 42 types of snow, and the Lapps have 8 seasons. So as you see, the translation might not be fully representing the information that we want to rely to another culture. So in order to represent something for another culture, you cannot just translate, right? You in fact need to localize. So we can understand localization as an adaptation of an idea from one culture to another. So just to put it in contrast with translation, translation, in fact, can be changing of words where we can understand the concept in our own sort of thinking, right? But with localization, on the other hand, we really want to project the meaning from one culture to another. In translation, we can be very mechanical with a vocabulary or with the rules, translating from one language to another. In localization, we really want to understand the whole context, maybe not from a phrase or from 2 phrases or of a phrase or 2 phrases, but rather of the entire message, rather of the entire thing that we want to relay or deliver to the other part. In translation, very easily context might be lost. And just let me give you an anecdotal example. So we had a coffee machine in our coffee kitchen, right? And you would see sometimes the writing empty tray. So empty can be a verb, but can be also an adjective, right? So when we see it in Czech, because we are based in Prague, in the heart of Europe, in the Czech Republic, so we have a Czech translation of this empty tray message. It says empty tray, but one could easily understand it as, hey, the tray is empty. But in reality, the tray is full and you have to empty. So the context is completely lost simply because there was a translation, not a localization. So, of course, in localization, we want to retain content. And for translating, we are good to go with ancient technology, rudimental technology, brute force. Whereas in localization, typically we require advanced technology when we speak about AI or any machine doing the translation job. So ultimately, if we only translate content, sometimes the result can be not really understandable by the consumer, by the user, by the counterpart. And you can lose competitive advantage in your messaging. Whereas in localization, you're retaining that competitive advantage because you're speaking in the language of that very person and of the very background of that person. So how does AI enter into this? So all of us know, obviously, tools like Google Translate and the Microsoft Translator, DeepL. All those tools are based on something which is called neural machine translation, or NMT for short. So NMT is actually a way of translating content, including context. NMT is a way how AI is trained specifically on the translation job. It, in fact, has two parts to it. It has a part that understands the context using natural language processing, or NLP. It understands the context in the source language, and it then translates it into the context and words of the destination language. So there is essentially a decomposition, translation, and recomposition into another language. Google, I think, migrated to the NMT technology in the year 2016. And in fact, I have some numbers here where a study was performed on the translations of medical terms in 2014, before this migration, and there was a 57.7% of accuracy of the translated terms. Not really too much, right? But after the migration, the UCLA Medical Center found that the overall translation precision was around 82.5%. That's a staggering increase just by using this NMT technology. And as we mentioned, Google is not the only player. There are multiple players on the market with this approach that is quite very refined. So NMTs and the translation using NMTs is actually great for repetitive content. So anything like user manuals or safety instructions, anything like that. But of course, also for things like user reviews and user-generated content. In fact, imagine that up to 73% of consumers prefer to have the reviews and product information being displayed in their language, in their basic local tongue. So translating definitely pays off. Now, we of course know that there is a huge movement right now with AI, which is called LLMs, or large language models. So can we translate with LLMs as well? Well, we could, but there's a stark difference between dedicated translation models like we've discussed just seconds ago and generic language models like LLMs. In our case, we all know ChatGPT by OpenAI. So of course you can translate, but the way how an LLM translates the contents is really, really very different. So while a translation model such as the Google Translate or Microsoft DeepL tries to understand the context, decompose and recompose the sentence in a different language or locale, in the case of LLMs, we are just trying to understand words and predict what the best word after the one that was actually put in front of us is. So this is how LLMs are able to translate text as well, but they are not really focused on that. Since they are not really focused on translation jobs, they are generic models. They also require much more words, much larger data sets to be trained. And of course, this is also an implication to the cost for the operation. So again, I have some numbers here. So, of course, the LLMs, as we mentioned, need much larger data sets compared to NMT systems. So, for instance, the GPT-3 has 175 billion parameters, while MBARD has only 680 million parameters. So there's a stark difference in the amount of data that are necessary to train the models. And of course, it is much more computationally expensive to translate some phrases or some amount of text from one language to another using an LLM compared to an NMT model. So in general, how do you approach localizing content in your ecosystem? Well, obviously, you need to have some input. This input can be any text, any content. It can be stored anywhere. So in our case, it can be stored either in a CMS or an experience management system, or it can be also stored in a digital asset management system. Mm-hmm. So, of course, then you can hit the machine translation, which accelerates greatly the translation process from one language to another. And we have a little demo over here how it can look. So let me just just run this. And we're good to go. So we are in Sitecore Content Hub at this very moment. So we open a product. In our case, we believe that the best product to translate right now is this beautiful fruitful lemonade. We have the master content in English, which is our default locale. Now, of course, we want to translate slogan and pretty much the long description into some other content, into some other locale, into some other language. In our case, it would be Czech. And we can see that there's no Czech description. So normally what I can do is to translate the product, which is this button right here. This will invoke the translation process, and we can get the information immediately back, populate the information into the locale, which in our case is again Czech. And you can see now everything is being populated. Of course, this greatly accelerates our process, but is it enough? Of course, we can see that it might not be enough, because when we do translation via a machine, although the translation might be 90% good, as we discussed, or even a little bit less, then we always need to have somebody looking at that translation. So translation using AI is definitely an accelerator, but it's not a single solution to do everything, especially if we want to retain quality. So a human needs to verify that. Once the human is okay, via workflow or any other mechanism, we can publish that information. Sometimes we can have still some complementing of the content done by a human. And of course, any qualitative gate that we want to install in the process will need to take care about showing the content in its best way possible for the consumer. Consumer might be somebody external, like our client or partner. It might be also somebody internal, especially if we are speaking about guidelines or safety instructions, anything where responsibilities and accountabilities especially are factored in.
Or maybe if there might be some special words that the client is using, for example, for their products, maybe the dictionary doesn't even know them. So then, of course, they need to be changed. And then there can be also some glossary for these special terms that might be used then more frequently.
Which is a great remark, and thank you for that. The glossary, controlled vocabulary, or whatever is the name that we want to apply, is something where specific models like Google Translate or DeepL or other models can be trained on and can be improved over time. So, of course, if we want to use AI, especially over those repetitive tasks, These can be trained and can be improved dramatically over time. So that translation memory, as it normally is called, can be increased. Sometimes it can be ported from one solution to another. So the gold that you invested, right, to have and to build over time can still live with you as a company and can reflect brilliantly the naming conventions or the product names or anything that is particular to your brand, to your industry. Last but not least, we can say that the quality of information remains fully in human responsibility. So even if we have AI as an acceleration tool or an augmentation tool, we as humans are the teachers. We are training the AI. We are building the AI. So the AI at this point in time, maybe in the future it's going to be different, but at least at this point in time, AI is only really a helper. So the responsibility lies always with us as people. And with that,
I might add a little bit more. If you put low quality input,
yes,
the output will probably also be not that high quality as you might expect.
Absolutely. There was a brilliant saying that it's garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, phenomenal. So with that, if there's anything that you would like to ask, I would be very happy to answer, and of course you. Otherwise,
moving to the Q&A. Okay, I see some question there. So if you don't mind, I'll read it. From Radek. So you can translate video content, but can you localize it with technology? Or do you always have to re-record it? It would be great to see this video with perfect localization to other languages.
So I think, thank you for the question. I think it totally makes sense to have this conversation. We discussed today in this presentation about mainly text content, but there's an array of other content. There's imagery, there's video, there's audio. So all of this content can be manipulated using specific approaches. Video might be edited using AI augmentation as well. You can have text to speech to create new languages. And of course, you can have adaptation of the speech itself in order to manipulate and change the words from one person to another. Incidentally, our CEO put actually on LinkedIn today a beautiful video where he has a speech. And during the speech, he uses Czech as his native language. And then he has other languages. I think he has Japanese and some German and some beautiful American English, which is very well lip-synced to his video. It is actually translated by a machine, and it modifies his own voice into an absolutely fluent speech in those languages. And I know that he doesn't speak Japanese by no means. He looks like a native speaker in that video. So
very true, very true.
Great question. Thank you.
Yeah, I would also just like to add to the demo that we showed the video that once you translate from one language to a second one, it might not be that time consuming, but if you may translate from one language to like 15 or more, then of course, if you would copy paste, it would take you significantly more time than using this automatic translation and then adjusting it by humans.
Right. Maybe another thing to add to this, GPT-3 has been trained on 97% English data.
Mm-hmm.
So this is GPT-3. Of course, it's different with the higher version, but it is great to translate to English. It is not that great to translate from English to other languages in case of GPT. In case of Google Translate, the translation quality may vary depending on the languages, from 55-ish% accuracy to those 80-ish that we said before. So it is really a very important factor from which language you're translating to which language. So the master language and the target language. This is very, very important.
Yeah, exactly. Like from my experience from the projects, it's quite easy to translate between, for example, English and German. But once we go for translation into the Slavic languages, then of course the false and the endings of the words might not be so accurate. So we still need to check it.
Absolutely.
First.
Fantastic. Do we have any other questions or comments?
No, I don't see any other questions here.
All right. Thank you.
But in case you might have any questions, just feel free to reach out to us, to Gianluca or myself or anyone else at ACTUM Digital, and we'll be happy to help with any advice on translations or other topics.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll give everyone back about 7 minutes of their time because I don't see any other questions that have come through. Just a big thanks to all of our presenters that came today and shared their thoughts and what they're working on and things that they're passionate about. I think it's great. So we will get this video posted in the future. Probably, I don't know, Tomasz, the time frame, but it will get posted on YouTube so that others can view it and see if conversation sparks from there, then we'll be able to see it.
Perfect.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
And
Thank you, everyone. Bye.